Hi, my name is Paul Jacobson. Today is 14 November 2013, and I almost forgot that today is World Diabetes Day. So I thought that what I would do is just share a little bit of my story. I was diagnosed as being diabetic type 2 on the 7th of February this year. I did a vitality assessment, and at the time, my wife and I did the assessment, and we thought we were just going to get a few extra points. And the test result for my blood glucose came out really high. I think the spot test was, and this is a pinprick test that you can do with a home testing kit. I think the result came out at about, it was close to 15 or something, which is really, really high. I spoke to my GP about it the next day. I went to a clinic nearby for another test, a fasting test, so I hadn't eaten yet. And the test still came back quite high, so I called my GP. He called me in for a proper test, an HbA1c, which is sort of a statistical average over a 3-month period, and came back with an HbA1c test result of 12.7. Now, the normal range is somewhere between about 4 to 6, 6.5, and that's probably where most people are for the most part. So I was, without a doubt, definitely diabetic, and it was a bit of a shock to me, but it wasn't, I did a bit of research online like most of us do, and what I noticed over and over is that diabetes isn't described as a disease, it's described as a condition. And if you manage your diabetes effectively, there's no reason why you can't live a fairly long and good life, even with the condition. So I'm currently not insulin dependent. I'm a type 2. I take 2 tablets a day. It's called glucophage, and a lot of diabetics are on it. And what I did was, when I found out that I am diabetic, I immediately cut out the majority of my sugar intake, obviously, because diabetes has a lot to do with excess sugar intake. It's either because your body's not processing it as effectively as a non-diabetic, or isn't just processing at all, or certain things. I'm still learning a lot about diabetes, but that's sort of one of the factors. So I immediately cut my sugar intake. I immediately changed my diet to focus more on low GI, eating a lot of fruit, a lot more fruit and vegetables. Before then, I suppose like many people, I didn't eat much fruit during the course of a week, let alone during a day, and I wasn't paying too much attention to what I was eating. And in fact, last year, I think I probably went completely overboard, eating far too much sugar-rich food. My favorite drink at the time was a tall, harmless sugar mommy latte from a Seattle coffee shop, which has 2 syrups in it, which I loved, but 2 syrup is a bad one for diabetics. Anyway, so I changed my diet immediately. I made some time to go see a dietitian who put me onto what I think is a reasonable diet based on moderation, smarter food choices. So the glycemic index becomes really important because it helps mitigate whatever sugar intake you are taking in. And the diet was also designed to help me lose weight. I think, if I remember correctly, in about December 2012, I weighed something in the region of 92, 93 kilos. When I was diagnosed, I'd already started going to gym, and I was down to about 88 or thereabouts. And I've since lost about 10 kgs since around about the time of my diagnosis. So I think probably about 15 kgs altogether. And it wasn't just about diet and sugar. I also started using my gym membership for what it's designed for, which is, exercise and training, and going a lot more often, and doing a lot more training while I'm at gym. And the cumulative effect of all of this is that I am probably now in much better condition physically than I've been for almost literally 2 decades. And I think that the difference has been so dramatic that I look at some photos of myself from a while ago, and I actually look older. I look older a year ago than I actually am. My HbA1c at my checkup in June this year was down to about 5.2, which to me says that my diabetes is under control. And as long as I maintain healthier habits and am more aware of what I'm consuming and when I'm consuming it, and test regularly. Testing regularly is important because it keeps you mindful of how you're doing and what your test scores are, and they go up and they go down. I mean, I have times where I'm in the sixes, and I have times where I'm in the fours, From what I understand, you want to aim for somewhere in the sixes, because that's when your brain has enough glucose or sugar or whatever the term is to function more effectively. But you want to test regularly and just keep an eye on yourself and be aware of when you dip, and make sure that you don't drop too low. So eat regularly throughout the day, eat healthier snacks, and but go to a dietitian, spend some time and understand what diet is best for you and your body. I've learned a few things since I've been a diabetic. The one thing I've learned is that it's incredibly important to exercise frequently and regularly. And when you do and you start to lose weight and you start to get into better shape, it actually feels really good. I don't want to go back to the shape that I was in before this. It really feels good to do this, and it also means that I'm probably going to live a longer life and a healthier life, and spend more time with my family and my kids. Another thing also is eat better. I found it really tough at the beginning when I didn't understand diabetes and how it worked and which foods were okay and which ones weren't. So again, another reason why it's a really good idea to go see a dietitian, because a dietitian will explain to you how your body works with different foods and which foods are better for you and which ones aren't. And just that knowledge is really important. I've made a conscious decision to track all of my metrics, all of my test results, and just take an active interest in my body and how it works and how I manage this diabetes. As I said before, so develop healthy habits. They will help you as you go. The more you do, the more you develop these habits, and the more you do healthy things and eat healthy foods, the easier it becomes to keep doing that. The one thing that scared me a little bit when I was diagnosed is that diabetes is such a scary thing. I've had cases involving diabetes where people have lost limbs and have suffered really bad complications of diabetes. And what I've learned is that if you manage your diabetes, there's no reason why you probably shouldn't experience many of these complications. I suppose the disclaimer here is it depends from person to person, and speak to your doctor and what have you, but the general idea is that if you manage your diabetes carefully, you really shouldn't see a lot of complications, and if you do, they should be more manageable. And it also means that diabetes isn't the end of your life. It could be the beginning of a new, even better phase of your life, and it's certainly been like that for me. I really regard diabetes as being probably one of the best things that have happened to me after meeting my wife and having our kids. Another important thing is involve your family. Your family support makes a huge difference. My wife was terrific. As soon as I was diagnosed, she went out and bought better foods for us, low GI, less sugar content, all of that. So she really made a huge effort to buy better foods for us, and the whole family has switched across to it. One of the things that some people say about the diabetic diet is that the diet for diabetics is probably actually a really good diet for most people generally. It's just a healthier diet. Another thing that I've learned is, yes, you should minimize or reduce your sugar intake, and you should eat better foods and make healthier choices. But for me at least, having a diet that is too restrictive and doesn't let me have any leeway is the kind of diet that I tend not to follow too much. And certainly for me at least, I found that I can have cheats now and then, but as long as I maintain an overall discipline about my eating and my exercise, the cheats don't have a long-lasting effect. So bear in mind, it doesn't necessarily have to be a radical and Spartan change in your life. It can be a change that you can manage and that you can learn to manage easily. Diabetes does mean changing your lifestyle. There's no question about that. And it's a good idea to do it for many reasons. And you need to maintain a discipline. You can't get too relaxed about it, because you probably will then experience many of the really bad side effects, like losing circulation in your limbs and potentially losing limbs, damage to your eyes, all of that stuff. There's some really bad stuff that can happen to an unmanaged diabetic. But the bottom line is, manage it carefully, know what you're doing, and take an interest in your condition, in your body. it can actually be a positive thing for you. It certainly was for me.